It's the people's voice with the conservative commentator, Adam Stevenson, with his guest this week, Kurtis Brooks. How you doing, Adam?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you guys doing?
Doing good, man. Doing good.
Good.
And for today, you have chosen a topic, which is?
Yeah, we've got a pretty sensitive topic today. Some of it is about the transgenderism movement. Recently in BC, there is a father who is called CD, who has been arrested and put in jail for not using the proper pronouns for his daughter. And also, sort of along the same subject matter, there was a president of the drag queen story time in Milwaukee, who also happens to be a children's circuit court judge, who was arrested on multiple counts of child pornography, also including sexual abuse of a minor for the purposes of sexual pleasure. That's what the article I read said. And it's really sad and it's really scary that this isn't the first time that it's been discovered that someone involved in the drag queen story time saga has had charges related to pedophilia. There was another one in, I think it was Texas. I'm not 100% sure on that. You might want to check it and bring it up. But I'm pretty sure it was in Texas. There was another one that was found that was literally reading storybooks in the library, bouncing children on their lap. And a group called Mass Resistance did an investigation into this and looked into it and discovered that this guy who was reading storybooks to children in the library, dressed in their attire, bouncing children on their lap, had formerly been charged as a pedophile in the past. And this is what they were doing with these people's children in the public library, endorsed by the library, endorsed by the public school boards, endorsed by the Democratic governors. And this is the kind of thing that's going on. And here we have, from Milwaukee, this judge, who is a children's court judge. This judge literally has the safety and future of thousands of children under their power and control, right?
And a kind of power that's called privilege that sort of protects him in certain chambers from the law. Let's say we got three things on the table. Let's hear from Kurtis. Where are you at in this, Kurtis?
So there's a lot of aspects of this, and I want to first, clarify that, all my life I've been a leftist, right? So, and, been a card-carrying member of the NDP, worked for the party. And when you see this kind of stuff going on, and the fact that so many people on the left are supporting this type of attitude, it's calling everybody out, to against this type of abuse, right? So it's very sad because you're seeing so many people who are leaving the left for the right because you get to a certain point where, you know, there's too much BS. And these people are being protected, you know, like you mentioned, you know, the fact that that these guys are judges, you know, they're in, you know, positions of power. To see this type of abuse, it tells you that there's a systematic problem here. It tells you that, you know, first off, our vetting systems are way off. But not only that people are being allowed to take these positions too easily. So, and of course, you know, judges hold a tremendous amount of power, especially when, you know, they're essentially exempt from the law in a lot of different ways, right? Nobody wants to go up against them. You know, lawyers don't want to, you know, get on their bad side, because lawyers know that if they get on the judge's bad side, then they're always going to lose their cases from here on in, right? You know, nobody wants to be against a judge. So it's a huge problem that it starts from all the way from the bottom and works its way all the way up. So it's very concerning.
Let's chat about the man who's in jail for not, and did I get it right? His son, who was now transgender to daughter, he would not call her or she. Is that what we're talking about?
I believe it was female to male transition. We need to be very careful about this. Can't mention the names. Right? There's some publication bans and that kind of thing, right? So we need to refer to them as CD and AD, right? So we can.
He's in jail right now.
Yes, the father is in jail.
Right. What? And then now the growing number of transgender people would be increased. So the chances of him being incarcerated with transgender people is probably there, right? So maybe he'll see something there. Like, you know what? There's some overtones here. You know, the guy that's in jail because he can't. It's in his family. I want to come back to that one. But the judge, the judge who sounds like he's just someone who dresses, or is he someone who's living a transition lifestyle? What was that about?
I don't know too much about the judge in this case. I can't really comment on that.
You know, and then to say that people that are transgender are automatically, you know, going to be predisposed to illegal activity. Mm-hmm. You know, that's broad brush.
Yeah.
Don't you think, or no?
Well, no, and nobody here is trying to say that, right? No. I don't know what the statistics are. I suppose one could go look at the statistics and see what those say. But because I don't know about that, I can't comment on that, right? What concerns me?
I don't think, but sorry if I may. It's
cool.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that I think a lot of times that, you know, it sounds as if, you know, people are trying to, you know, paint these types of brushes, but the reality is that if you are predisposed to this type of crime, right? If this is what is in your mind to do, it's simply, you know, just the best situation for you, right? So if that's my goal, if that's my agenda, is to, you know, molest children. Yeah. Well, what better way to do that than to get into a position that allows me to do so, right? Which is why, again, going back to it, the vetting process has to be that much more important.
Yeah. Sure. Well, hold on. I have a question for Kurtis. How is that not being aware or turning a blind eye to people that are not there's probably the same number of people that commit that crime in every population segment, right? So now what we're dealing with people of of transgender, right? So sorry, I lost my thought on that question because it's an important issue,
right? You're absolutely right, James. It does happen in other places, It happens in the Catholic
Connections,
Church. It
choppy,
happens. It happens in the police force. It happens in the Protestant church. It happens in the court system. It happens among the political elites, right? And Hollywood. This is a thing that happens in a lot of different places, but it doesn't mean that it should be treated any differently, or that we should not look carefully at how it affects different demographics.
But how does that cause people to leave the left to go to the right?
Well, I think so. I mean, one of the things that is actually very common in the transgender community is mental illness, histories of mental illness. Now, this comes from their stats alone, right? And they talk about this a lot because it's something that is often felt needs to be addressed by the government or whomever to give aid or give support to the community. And so because they are well aware of this commonality in their community, they try to address it. Now, so you're absolutely right. Like if you that could be said about any particular community, but in a situation where you know that these people have far more common mental illness issues, right? You got to make sure that you're looking at that more, right? And that's their own stats. What we used to petition the government for is mental health assistance in a variety of different ways, right? Because it's a variety of different issues, right? So again, when you're dealing with mental health, particularly, it's that much more important that we do good assessment for it. And if you have a predisposition to, or you see that a population has mental health issues far more frequently, the same is true about the Black community, for example. And the reason for that is historical, right? So poverty breeds illnesses, breeds stress, starting financial issues, which breaks down the family home. It breaks down all sorts of different systems, social systems. When those systems are broken down, so too does mental health deteriorate, right? That's just a natural consequence of having difficulties, right? And so one problem leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. But again, when that is the case, then we have to be, as a society, be aware of that and look to that and say, okay, well, you know what? Because this is the situation, let's pay close attention to this, right? And in particular, with the types of problems that have people that people with the transgender community tends to have issues with. They tend to be fairly related to this topic as a whole, right? So it's good for us to be mindful
on both directions of transition. Is it like on both new gender?
So my thing is always like, I'm always very concerned about talking about these things, because on the one hand, if you do interviews with these people and talk to these people about their backgrounds and whatnot, like I don't like to tell people's personal stories, but at the same time, you see it very commonly that there are issues sexual issues that relate to childhood that tend to be very common in this community, and again, that those sexual issues in childhood tend to also lead to perpetuation of that.
So are you suggesting a Maoist sort of a tactic now that transgender people have come out, and to now we know?
No. So what I'm saying is that in our, go ahead.
No.
Well, what I'm saying is that if it is that we know that this element of this relationship exists, then we should make sure that our tailoring and our questioning is a lot more thorough, whether that be psychological evaluations, whether that be, just further background checks, like, going to talk to their family, for example, because the judge is not a small position, right? Again, they hold the power of people's lives.
Right? Instead of making it a label that they've got a free pass because they want to show that there's rainbows everywhere, right? And that was a mistake. So you're saying that on the left, promoting that agenda, getting people as quickly as possible to have enough people who are of a certain kind of community in these positions to, I don't know why, their cultural revolution, I guess, the left, it's not even the left,
no, it's not.
And special interest that has invaded the left. But okay, so now we're talking about
that is that the left kind of part and parcel supports all of this, right? They're like, oh yeah, drag queen story time is a wonderful thing. It needs to be celebrated. These people need to read stories to children and have bounce on their lap. And then when people look into it and they find out that some of them are pedophiles, right? And the left tries to shut down all of that and tell those people that you're hateful, you're transphobic, blah, 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 just because they were like, hey, that guy's a pedophile that's reading to those kids, right? And then they try to defend it, right? That's the difference.
Yeah.
Right.
So are you saying in the community that there's a leniency to pedophilia as one of the LGBTQ2SP?
I would say there's a leniency to snuffing and silencing anything that goes against the left's narrative.
I don't see the left. The special. Sorry,
I gotta say. So I wanted to say about what Adam just said, right? I have to agree to a large extent. There's not because look, there is a certain tribalism that has developed over the last 20 years or so within politics, right? And this is a huge problem because nobody's concerned with what's right and wrong anymore. What people are concerned with is defending their side. And, again, this is why I remain a leftist, because my policies are on the left. Now, I agree with left policies as a whole. Now, does that mean that I'm going to, pretend like I don't have a conscience or ignore that because I see people doing wrong, and so I'm just going to start to go on their side simply because I agree with social policies or financial policies or whatever? No. If molesting children is wrong, I don't see why that should be any form of an issue.
That should be the issue.
And yet in all these situations, though, what's happening is people are coercing their own morals by saying, well, my team, and this happens on both left and right, but more right now, what we're seeing is more on the left as a major issue. So what's happening is people are going, oh, well, everybody on my team is for this. Am I for this? Maybe, maybe not. Either way, this is the direction we're all going with. And part of the problem here is cancel culture, right? Because if they feel that if they don't go along with whatever it is, that they're going to be shamed for not going along with it. Mm-hmm. Me personally, I don't really care what people think, so that's why I stand where I am. Right?
Are there worse layers? There's pedophilia. What's worse than pedophilia? I don't know. What else is out there? Right?
To me, nothing. Personally. But
I'm not going to get into a lot of conspiracy theories and stuff that are out there. I'm just going to look at the things that I can verify that I know that are happening, right? That I can see, look at, and be like, this is what this is. Here's the dictionary definition of it. Right?
So then it's not necessary, it's allowed, it's just, I think that goes on the communities, that goes on to the community. It's like every community has to take responsibility, for itself. It doesn't have to be members of the LGBTQ 2S community alone. We all look to our community. If there's pedophiles operating in our community, we do the right thing and we turn them in.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
See,
That's
yeah,
the
but I think one of the
responsibility they would
problems
have to take, I think, to be law abiding. I don't know. Am I wrong?
Yeah, but I mean, just as a general concept, the left is not necessarily very good at taking care of responsibility in that respect, right? So, I mean, if you look at the conservative principles, right? The conservative principle, and this is one thing I do respect about your side of things, is the conservative principle is all about taking responsibility for oneself, right? Pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, yada yada, all that kind of stuff, right? That is not the philosophy of the left, right? We tend to have more of a communal responsibility aspect of things, and when people have a communal responsibility, say it's somebody else's responsibility to do that. So it's easy to say, okay, yeah, you know what, I'm against pedophilia, but I don't have to actually do anything for it, So, whereas the right tends to take more responsibility, on an individual basis, on an individual level, and I think that's part of the reason why you see that difference there.
Sounds like the dictatorship of the proletariat has fallen down now.
I think so, and it's unfortunate because like I said, in terms of the policies, I'm very much.
Who are the proletariat? The proletariat is the worker, right? And
yeah,
the left is that's why what's called the left isn't really the left. It's
absolutely
it's a gelling of special interests. The worker, the proletariat.
It's been
really what it's about.
And again, yeah.
And then so now we look at people of the transgender community who are working people.
We can look at those kinds of things from the other side too, though, right?
We've all had things happen, like I'm of German descent. Something happens in Germany, people look at you. You know what I mean? So now these people who are transgender, now everyone's looking at them because these bozos, you know what I mean? Breaking the law and raping kids, right? But you can't say, I understand what you're saying with the overall, right? But if they look that close to any segment of the human population, they're going to find the same amount. Maybe we should. Maybe we're calling for a lot more sensitivity, and not that we're hunting them to oppress them, but identifying these trends earlier, right, to help them not end up all by themselves making these kind of mistakes and crimes, right? So. What was the last one, Adam? There was that last one that was good. And I wrote I scribbled it wrong. I can't read my scribbling. You did the guy in the jail, you did the judge, and there was a guy in Milwaukee or something. What was that one?
That was the judge. That was the judge we spoke about.
Oh, okay. The other one, the other guy was in the library reading stories or something. Well, you know what?
It's all sort of wrapped into the.
Okay. Let's give Adam the major last word, and then Kurtis, you want anything to say before we end? What do you got to say, Adam?
So basically, what you're saying is we don't know what the statistics are of these different demographics. So maybe we should pull it up.
Yeah.
Pull it. Let's see what the statistics are, right? And if there is a higher percentage in one demographic compared to another, then that needs to be looked at reasonably and on a logical perspective very closely, right? You can't just ignore it and be like, oh, well, we can't look at that because people are going to call us transphobic if we do. Well, no, if it's happening and it's there, then that needs to be looked at. You can't just shy away from it because you're afraid that people are going to call you names or that, that you might be focusing on one group too much. Well, if the statistics factually say that percentage wise that group has a far higher number than the others, then you need to look at that and find out what it is about that that's causing it, right? You can't just sort of turn the other cheek and be like, oh well, that's too sensitive and not go there. That's insane. And when you do that, you're literally endangering the lives and livelihoods and futures of millions of children.
And to you, Kurtis.
Yeah. No, I have to second that, what I'm saying. I mean, I don't, it is dishonest, and there's a lack of integrity when we try to say that each group is the exact same, right? So demographics are different, and that's why we take record of them. And it's not even necessarily to say that this is a bad thing or a good thing or what have you. You know, if you look at the Black population in the United States, the Blacks commit more crimes now, or excuse me, Blacks fill the jails. Now, whether that's, what is the cause of that? Now, well, obviously, if you look at the history of it all, you had slavery, which led to people not owning things, right? Poverty is going to make you, when people get out of slavery, they don't own anything. And of course, all the white people own stuff, right? So you own nothing. How are you going to eat? Well, what's going to be your option? Right? You need to steal something, and intergenerationally that continues. So, but similarly, the Native community that is also part of my heritage. We have a predisposition to not being able to take alcohol. Why? Because we weren't taking alcohol for the longest period of time. Initially, a lot of people came out and said, well, that's racist, and well, it's also factual. So if you want to call it racism, okay, that's it's neither here nor there. The reality is that, we get alcohol poisoning a lot quicker because we didn't invent alcohol, and we didn't drink it for thousands of years like Europeans and like Africans did. And as a result, we don't have any ability to defend it, or very little. So, these are just realities. They're not, it's not a matter of being racist or bigoted or what have you. The question is, can we have the integrity to actually speak up about these things and be honest about them, and not in a blaming way and saying, oh, well, this, whatever. It's not about blame. It's about, let's be real with the situation, and let's deal with it appropriately. It's simple as that. And like Adam said, you can't, because if we don't deal with it appropriately, we don't look at the cause and effect, then we end up having a situation that perpetuates itself and gets worse over time.
The People's Voice with Adam Stevenson, the conservative commentator, and we've had his guest, Mr. Kurtis Brooks. Nice having you, sir.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Great.
It's the People's Voice with the conservative